Menglong's name didn't knock before entering the room. It burst through the door like a wind that had learned the shortcut to the internet, carrying dust, whispers, and a fevered urgency that made hearts race before minds could catch up. One moment his name lived where it always had. Inside scenes, inside memories, inside the soft echo rolls that once made people pause. The next moment, it was everywhere, glowing on screens like a warning light, vibrating through searches, ricocheting between timelines that moved faster than truth could breathe. It started small, the way these things always do, a line without a spine, a post without a pulse, a suggestion shaped like certainty, wearing the borrowed authority of people are saying. No source, no anchor, just a spark dropped into dry grass. And the grass was ready. It had been waiting for something dramatic enough to interrupt the scroll, something heavy enough to feel important, something loud enough to drown out the quiet. Silence became the stage. Menglong had always existed slightly apart from noise, never begging for attention, never feeding the machine more than necessary. That distance, once respected, suddenly felt suspicious to a culture addicted to constant updates. In the internet's impatient language, quiet is interpreted as absence, and absence is interpreted as meaning. When answers don't arrive on demand, imagination rushes in like water finding a crack, swelling until it splits the surface. The scenes unfolded quickly, a fan refreshing a search page again and again, watching suggested words shift like shadows. A group chat filling with alarmed messages, punctuation multiplying as certainty dissolved. A screenshot passed from account to account, stripped of context, dressed in urgency. A name once tied to longing and warmth now paired with speculation sharp enough to sting. What made it mind-blowing wasn't the rumor itself. It was the speed. The way emotion outran verification. The way concern became currency. The way the internet's hunger for a story turned uncertainty into a spectacle. People didn't ask, "Is this true?" They asked, "Have you seen this?" Seeing replaced knowing. Sharing replaced checking. And soon, the act of posting felt like participation in something historic. Even though history had not yet written a single verified sentence, the internet does not wait for facts. It waits for reactions. Some posts try to sound careful, cushioning claims with words like allegedly and reportedly, as if politeness could purify doubt. Others drop the pretense entirely, choosing emotional finality over responsibility. Grief is a powerful accelerant. It demands attention, and attention is exactly what algorithms reward. And so the cycle tightened. Each comment asking for clarification pushed the topic higher. Each argument fed the flame. Each emotional response taught the system that this was what people wanted. In this loop, truth doesn't stand a chance. It doesn't scream. It doesn't shock. It doesn't perform. It simply exists, patient and unadorned, waiting for someone willing to slow down enough to hear it. Menglong's name became a mirror, reflecting not just a rumor, but the culture that carried it. A culture where fame turns people into symbols, where distance makes it easy to forget there's a real life beyond the screen, where the line between curiosity and consumption has blurred into something dangerous. The internet is skilled at turning people into stories without consent. Past interviews were re-examined like prophecy. Neutral expressions were frozen and reinterpreted. Old clips were edited into new meanings. The ordinary was transformed into ominous, not because it was true, but because it fit the narrative people were already leaning toward. Once a story takes shape, everything begins to serve it. That's how confirmation bias dresses itself as insight. Some fans felt protective, convinced that spreading the news, true or not, was a form of care. Others felt uneasy but shared anyway, afraid of being left out of the collective moment. A few tried to slow things down, to ask for sources, to remind everyone that speculation can wound. Their voices were there, but they were quiet, and quiet rarely goes viral. What's haunting is how familiar it all felt. Different name, same rhythm. Silence, suspicion, surge. The internet has rehearsed this play so many times it knows the cues by heart. It knows when to raise the volume, when to dim nuance, when to trade patience for panic. And through it all, Menglong remained what it always been. A person whose life could not be reduced to a headline, whose reality did not bend to the shape of a trending topic. Yet his name carried the weight of thousands of assumptions, each one adding gravity, each one pulling the story further from center. Search engines adjusted, not because they understood, but because they reflected. When enough people chase the same idea, the system mirrors it back as relevance. Relevance masquerades as legitimacy. Legitimacy becomes belief. And belief, once formed, is stubborn. This is the part that rarely gets discussed. The emotional aftermath. The panic fans felt was real. The confusion was real. The sense of loss, even if based on uncertainty, carved something genuine into people's days. Emotional damage doesn't ask whether its cause was verified. It simply arrives. Then there's the quieter cost. Trust erodes. Skepticism hardens. Every future update is questioned. Every silence scrutinized. The relationship between audience and artist shifts subtly, permanently. Menglong's name didn't just go viral. It passed through a system that thrives on acceleration, that rewards immediacy over integrity. It revealed how easily the internet mistakes speed for truth and volume for proof. We say the internet did this, as if it were an independent force, but the internet is made of choices, of clicks, of shares, of moments where someone could pause and instead press forward. The mind-blowing realization is not that misinformation spreads. It's that we help it spread while believing we are only watching. Every viral moment is a collaboration. Somewhere between the first post and the 1,000 share, responsibility dissolves. No one feels like the source anymore. Harm becomes abstract. And when the dust settles, the story lingers in fragments, half remembered, half corrected, never fully erased. Because the internet remembers even when people move on. Menglong's story, or rather the story told around his name, fits seamlessly into the pattern that has repeated itself too many times to ignore. It is a reminder that silence should not be treated as an invitation for speculation, that privacy is not a puzzle to be solved, that absence does not require explanation to be valid. Yet the culture we've built resists that idea. It demands constant visibility, constant performance. When someone steps out of frame, the audience assumes the scene must still continue, even if it means inventing a script. That is where empathy fractures. The truth, when it finally surfaces, rarely arrives with drama. It doesn't undo the damage with equal force. Corrections don't trend the way rumors do. Calm does not compete with chaos. And so the initial impression often outlives a clarification. This imbalance is not accidental. It's structural. Platforms are designed to amplify what provokes, not what reassures. They elevate what triggers emotion, not what asks for patience. In that environment, restraint feels invisible, even though it is the only thing that could slow the spiral. Menglong's name became a lesson written in real time, a demonstration of how quickly a person can be rewritten by collective imagination. Not because people are cruel by nature, but because systems reward speed over care and spectacle over substance. The scenes that matter most are the smallest ones. A finger hovering over the share button, hesitating, then tapping anyway. A quiet doubt ignored because it felt inconvenient. A moment of empathy overridden by the thrill of being early to a story. These are the moments that shape virality. When we look back at how his name moved through the internet, we should resist the urge to treat it as an isolated incident. It isn't. It's a symptom of a culture that confuses access with ownership, visibility with entitlement, curiosity with permission. The truth does not need urgency to exist. It needs room to be verified, room to be incomplete, room to breathe without being forced into a narrative. Until we learn to give it that space, stories like this will keep repeating, with different names and familiar consequences. Silence will keep being misread. Privacy will keep being punished. And the internet will keep mistaking its own echo for confirmation. Menglong's name went viral not because of what happened, but because of how we reacted to not knowing. Because uncertainty makes us uncomfortable and discomfort drives clicks. Because endings feel better than open questions, even when those endings are imagined. If there's a truth we're holding on to, it is this. Not every moment needs a conclusion. Not every silence hides a secret. And not every viral story deserves our participation. Sometimes the most radical act online is patience. To pause. To verify. To let a person exist beyond the noise. Because behind every trending name is a human life that does not belong to the internet, no matter how loudly it tries to claim it. And yet, even after the noise begins to fade, the echo remains. That is the part most people don't notice. The afterimage that lingers once the scrolling slows and timelines move on to the next sensation. Menglong's name, once carried by rumor and urgency, doesn't simply return to where it was before. It hovers. It exists with shadow now, shaped by everything that was said when certainty was absent. There's a quiet moment that happens after virality, when the internet exhales, the frantic refreshing stops, notifications thin out, people return to their routines, carrying fragments of what they think they know. And in that calm, something unsettling becomes clear. Most never go back to check what was true. The correction, if it comes at all, arrives too softly to rewrite the impression already formed. This is how myths survive modern times, not because they're believed fully, but because they're remembered vaguely. A lingering, "I heard something once," replaces clarity. A half-formed assumption sits where knowledge should be. And slowly, that assumption becomes part of the background. Imagine a fan months later, stumbling across Menglong's name again. There's a flicker of uncertainty, a pause, a thought that never fully resolves. That is the residue of virality. Not outrage, not grief, just confusion that never found closure. The internet rarely gives closure. What makes this especially striking is how normalized it has become. People talk about online chaos as if it's whether unavoidable, impersonal, something that simply happens. But chaos is built. It's assembled one interaction at a time. One post, one share, one moment where speed is chosen over sense. There's a scene that plays out quietly in thousands of homes, far from comment sections and trending pages. Someone sits alone, phone in hand, scrolling through updates about a person they've never met but feel deeply connected to. Their chest tightens, their mind races. For a brief moment, the line between stranger and family blurs. This emotional closeness is real, even if the information fueling it is not. That is a paradox of fandom in the digital age. Connection without proximity, intimacy without access. And when that connection is shaken by uncertainty, the emotional response is immediate and sincere. But sincerity does not equal accuracy. The platforms hosting these moments are indifferent to that distinction. They do not weigh emotional cost. They do not consider context. They measure momentum. And momentum favors whatever moves fastest, whatever provokes the strongest reaction in the shortest time. Silence, on the other hand, moves slowly. Silence does not provoke. Silence does not trend. Silence asks for patience. And patience is the one resource the internet is least willing to spend. Menglong's quiet presence, which once felt grounding, became misinterpreted as absence. Absence became suspicious. Suspicion became story. And story became spectacle. This transformation didn't require malice. It only required impatience. What's striking is how quickly people forget that not everything visible online is meant to be consumed immediately. Some things are unfinished. Some things are private. Some things are simply none of our business. But the architecture of social media does not encourage restraint. It encourages participation. It invites commentary even when commentary is premature. So people fill the gaps. They filled them with theories, with emotion, with imagined timelines. They connected unrelated dots because disconnected facts feel uncomfortable. They search for meaning where there may have been none defined. And meaning, once constructed, is hard to dismantle. There's a moment in every viral controversy where the truth stands quietly at the edge, waiting for someone to invite it in. Often, that invitation never comes. The crowd is already facing another direction, chasing another surge of adrenaline. The truth doesn't shout. It doesn't compete. It waits. This waiting is mistaken for weakness. But the truth is not weak. It is just patient. Menglong's name traveling through the cycle reveals something deeply human about our relationship with uncertainty. We are uncomfortable with not knowing. We crave explanations, even flawed ones, because ambiguity feels like standing on shifting ground. In that discomfort, we accept stories that feel complete over facts that feel unfinished. Completion feels like relief. And so, even when people begin to sense that something isn't right, they hesitate to undo what they've already shared. Retraction feels like embarrassment. Correction feels like defeat. It is easy to move on than to admit uncertainty. This is how responsibility slips through collective fingers. What remains afterward is a lesson few take the time to examine. Not a lesson about one individual, but about the systems we participate in daily. About how easily empathy can be redirected into spectacle. About how quickly silence is treated as a signal instead of a boundary. There is something deeply unsettling about how normalized it has become to discuss a real person's life as a puzzle for public consumption, to analyze absence as if it were a clue, to treat privacy as an invitation. Menglong did not choose to become a case study. His name simply crossed the threshold where curiosity met momentum, where questions became claims, where claims became content, and content, once created, does not disappear quietly. It lingers in cached pages, in archive posts, in the memory of those who encountered it briefly and never returned. It becomes part of the digital sediment layered beneath newer stories, ready to resurface whenever the name appears again. This is why slowing down matters more than ever. Not because slowing down is noble, but because speed has consequences. Because every viral wave reshapes perception. Because every unverified share contributes to a culture where truth is optional and reaction is mandatory. The most powerful scenes are not dramatic. They are ordinary. Someone choosing not to repost. Someone waiting for confirmation. Someone admitting they don't know. These moments don't go viral, but they are the only ones that prevent harm. Menglong's name going viral for some reason is not a mystery when examined closely. The reason is a system that rewards immediacy, a culture that equates silence with suspicion, an audience trained to react before reflecting. If there's a truth worth holding on to, it is this: virality is not evidence, attention is not accuracy, and silence is not a story waiting to be written. Until we learn to sit with uncertainty, to let questions remain questions, these cycles will repeat. New names will replace old ones. New rumors will wear familiar shapes. And the internet will continue mistaking its own echo for truth. The real ending to this story does not belong to the internet. It belongs to the choice each person makes the next time a name surges across their screen. To pause, to question, to resist the pull of chaos. Because sometimes, the most meaningful response to a viral moment is not participation, but restraint.